everybody has a goal and then has the path, and the path is rocky and it never works, but they know forward that if they just get up one more time and keep pushing along no matter where it is and set up a logical process and really set up accountability, they're going to continue to get there. And each time they may fall farther than they did before, but if they get back up, they're going to go farther. They're going to go higher than they did before.
Your network is your net worth. Come listen to some of the most successful people I know share invaluable knowledge, stories, and advice in real estate, business, and beyond. This is Weiss Advice. Whether you want to take your business or personal life to the next level, look no further. Welcome back to Weiss Advice. I am your host, Yonah Weiss. It is a pleasure to have you listening in today, and I do have a special treat for you. I'm on the call today with the one and only Jason Yarusi. How you doing, Jason?
I'm doing great. I may be the only Jason Yarusi.
I know.
That's not a common name. So,
exactly.
So it may actually fit. I'll take it. So
when you Google your name, what comes up? Is it you or is it someone else? That's really how I judge it. And when I Google Yonah Weiss, my LinkedIn profile comes up at the top of we're going to do an episode just about that, about how important that is. But a little bit about Jason, because if you don't know Jason and his wife, Pili, they are, really pillars of the multifamily community around the country. They have the Jason and Pili Project, which is a YouTube channel and a podcast that goes through the foundations of, not just investing in real estate, but what goes behind that. And these are some things I'd love to get into a little deeper today, whether it's the mental fortitude that it takes to build something like that. And you guys are big health, I wouldn't say fanatics, but you guys, to everyone else viewing, it seems like that way. But, you guys own multifamily investment properties. You have over 800 units currently under management. And I had the pleasure of speaking at their incredible, multifamily foundation club, a meetup in New Jersey that has over 2,000 members. And they're focusing on, just building community and talking about real estate and syndication, et cetera. So Jason, let's just jump into it. I want to talk about, this mindset, the mental fortitude that you're talking about. And if anyone's following you on social media and you guys, you're talking about the exercise and you're running seemingly marathons every day. And if someone didn't know any better, they'd think you're like training to be, an Olympian. What's driving you?
Well, I appreciate the great intro. That was incredible. So, I found that over the years, right, that we focus so much on outside, right? And each day, we spend so much time on being what other people are, and we forget to be where we are. And so it got back that one of the first things that really stood out to me is I had to really start, winning the day with myself. And a lot of that comes down to just mentally preparing to know what I want to do and then produce the outcome. And I've associated a lot of that to the running, right? So I've run a number of ultra marathons, number of marathons. I run daily, probably at least 6 miles a day. And for that, it's one of those times where I get out early, I do my run. It gives me time to give my mind the space I need, and it constantly creates a winning environment by really just completing a task, right? And now it's become part of life, not so much of an event, but I do like to train for races. We're in the middle of COVID, so the next one, 100-miler in Canada, may be in August or may not be, depending. But I'm still running every day, whether it is or it isn't, right? Because it's the preparation to be prepared for when the right time comes, instead of trying to jump in when the right time comes, and then of course not being ready.
I love that. It's like you said, it's like the foundation of your day. And it's all about building foundations. And I think it's, no coincidence that your podcast, is called the Multifamily Foundation, or I guess maybe you changed it, the Jason and Pili Project, but that's what you guys are all about, is building those foundations. And your daily, what does it look like? What kind of things do you focus on during that morning run?
Sure. So I get up probably 4:15 every day is my go-to time. Maybe somewhere before 5, 4:15, 4:30. That's my range right there. Get out of bed, and that's that first one, because so many times you want to hit that snooze alarm and go back in. And I just told myself a while ago that I'm just going to get up. Right, just going to get up and get doing that. I go down, drink water, have coffee. I will spend time to just reflect, really use meditation for 10 minutes, quick at that point, do some brain games. And depending where that leaves me, if some kids have gotten up or not, I may hang with the kiddos a minute and then get out that door anywhere from about 5:45 to 6 o'clock and get that mileage in. And I find whether it's listening to podcasts or just running itself, so many of my ideas that come up, right? So much things, whether it's business, personal, content creation, just so much comes to you because you're giving that energy, right? You're giving your time, that your mind is, it's most there in the morning when you're ready to go, right? And so instead of letting it go into other things, right, throwing the news on or putting something out there where ultimately my ability to focus on me first and what's going to be best for the day is now broadcast to other things that are outliers that maybe I have no control of. Maybe I can help in my part, but I ultimately can't, if there's a war, 2,000, 5,000 miles away, okay, great for us to know that, but there's nothing I can do right now. I can just focus on me being the best version of myself and helping my circle to be better as well.
Right. And, it's kind of similar in a different way, but, similar difference, if you will, that, we, part of my religious upbringing and practice is that we also, in a different way, like I said, focus the first thing in the morning before anything else. As we go as a community and we'll go and pray together. And it's a whole, a lot of practices, but really that prayer is more about mindset and about focusing and, meditation, if you will, but it's really drawing those energies, the first things in the morning to focus on the right things. And it's the same idea as where your mind is going, what you want to focus on, how you want to prepare your day and what those foundations need to be. So, I think that's, amazing. However you're going to do it, I think a lot of people use the morning rituals, whatever it is, whatever that's going to be, start your day, be in control of your day and don't let your day get in control of you. I think
I equate it to a train, right? So imagine the train stops at each stop to pick you up. But imagine you start your day in the middle of the train stop, between train stops, and you're trying to jump on the train as it's going 100 miles an hour. And that's how we start our day a lot of times, right? We get up into just mass confusion or chaos, or just we go right into the motion of activity without really being prepared, right? So, and that comes from us not really creating a schedule or just taking back our day. So we get up, the train's moving already. We're trying to catch it and jump onto it. Sometimes we're missing it. Sometimes potentially maybe we get on it, or ultimately, it's a complete disaster. And then we end the day and just look back and say what happened. But if we can get up first and say, okay, let me prepare. So when the train's going to be at the stop, I can be at the right location, get on and create that momentum. Then it continues to build and continues to build daily.
That's awesome. And do you have, in terms of the running, in terms of the exercise, you can speak for yourself or for Pili on her behalf, but are there certain goals that you set up in mind, or is it just, getting in the framework, or, like I said, are there goals that are associated with that?
So I ran my first marathon in 2009, right, in New York City, right? So I started on a goal, okay, I want to run it under 4 hours, and you continue to go on that point. So we did that, and then you just start creating the next goal, right, and the next goal. So there's never a point that like, okay, I want to do this goal, but I run a marathon and say, okay, cool, what can I do past that? Okay, I run a 50 mile, okay, cool, now I can run past that. Okay, I run a 100 mile, now cool, what can I do that? I did 500 miles last month, okay, cool, what can I do that? So looking at the next event, there's a couple 200-mile runs that are a little difficult to get into, but that's where my focus is set now. So there's two that's a 200 and 240. I'm focusing there, right? And so on that point, will I get or not, it doesn't matter, because I'm putting this in part of my this is the day, right? Because you're ultimately not going to get out and just run 200 miles in a day if you don't have a race involved. So I'm just going to continue to do my running regimen and do what I do to prepare myself. And for that point, if the race comes up and we're able to accomplish, being in there, then great. And so I use these as two things. One, it's that Pili and I, we get involved. This is something that, we like to do. And then it's a family commitment when we go out there, and it's more about teaching our kids, like, okay, hey, we're going to commit, right? We're going to do this. And is it always going to go right? No. Will we potentially fail? Sure. But when we do, what are we going to do? Are we going to put our head down and, and weep? Or are we going to say, okay, that happened. Okay, let's reflect on that. Okay, was it maybe what could we learn from this experience? And then, okay, let's try again. And each time it's that point where, and that's a lot that, I wish I had a little bit more when I was moving along growing up, is that just, it's okay to fail, right? And I think we get so stuck on social media these days that you see the ultimate end product, right? So people there, doing whatever, but they've now accomplished a magnificent feat, but we miss the journey, right? We miss the journey. It's like the band that's been touring for 3 decades and all of a sudden now they're huge, but they've been sleeping on couches for 20 years, but nobody talks about that, right? It's just the ultimate success. And then someone's, just picking up a guitar, like, I might as well not pick up a guitar because this guy's already made it 30 years down the road. And it's the same thing with like any core business, right? Oh, I don't know if I want to start today because this person's all behind, or, we start to want to get in shape and, within a week, we don't see immediate reactions. And a lot of that's it's just the world now. Things move a lot quicker, right? So, you look back, 25 years ago, 30 years ago, you start having rotary phones. And now today, with the snap of you push a button, it goes up to a satellite, hits somebody else. And if you don't have a reaction in 30 seconds, you're like, what happened? And I'm texting you across the world. You're like, why didn't you get back to me? So it's been 2 minutes, it's like sometimes it's that. And it takes all of us to say, okay, let's just make sure we're doing the right task first. And it constantly looking at what we're doing and saying, is this the best use of my time? And I'm feeling at this all the time. And I'm trying to re-engage. Like, is this the best use of my time? And sometimes we don't know, so we have to do the task to learn, right? So okay, I don't know. This could be very helpful. So I got to test, right? It's like being a scientist and experimenting, right? So they're not doing these experiments because they know they work, right? They're going to fail 99% of the time. It's like them creating a vaccine right now. Like, it's not like if they knew it made a vaccine, they wouldn't be trying all this stuff out, but they're trying to find the ultimate result. And that's like a lot what we're doing each day. So I find that a certain running pattern works for me, so I like running outdoors. I'll run on a treadmill if I have to, but I prefer to be outside. I don't care if it's, -10 or 150. I'd rather just be outside, right? And that just allows me to be more into it. And on that point, for some other people, and maybe they'd rather be in an enclosed environment. So just finding that environment, build on it, but at times testing yourself. Just like running on a treadmill, you got to get on it, right? You got to condition yourself. It's that, and a treadmill is a good way to look at things because you're ultimately running a distance, but you're going nowhere, right? But you're putting in that work to get somewhere, right? So you're putting in the leg work to move, but you're going nowhere. But you are accomplishing something. But you have to remember your mind. I've from A to B, I'm still in A, but the ultimate journey, I've created transformation.
Right. It's a great analogy. And in terms of that, transitioning, because I think you touched on it a little bit, but I want to ask you, how does this translate into business? I mean, you guys have starting out in multifamily investing in 2016, and obviously a lot has happened between then and now over the past few years. Mm-hmm. What's that transition been like for you? And maybe just touch on the challenges in that and kind of the parallel to what you're talking about in the running, how that parallels to running your business.
Well, you have to give it the trajectory, right? So maybe wholesaling or flipping homes, a transactional knowledge of, or even real estate being an agent, it's more transactional in nature. So there's a quicker turnaround for that. For apartment buildings, it's this mega vessel, right? 100 people living in it. And so the time it takes to have a process go in place and being able to see the process through fruition, that can be 6 months, 12 months, 5 years, 10 years. It depends on how big of the nature it is. So noting that from the outset is that we can't expect everything to go right. And that's a lot that comes back from the businesses I've opened. From that point, there is the worst plan, the best plan, and then there's the plan that's going to work and going to happen, right? And when we find that we're in trouble, is that 2 things. We've either set our sight that the only way this works is the best plan, or we've eliminated the potential for us to succeed because we've only focused on the worst plan, right? So I'm not going to buy an apartment building because there's a chance it's going to burn down. Okay, so, but if you look at that, right, that may be some of the nature of some people who are stopping the sidelines because they're looking at that worst case scenario, because what if this happens?
Right, it's the analysis paralysis, right?
Correct. And you get stuck in that mode where you don't take action. So, and what usually keeps us in that analysis paralysis is that we're not actually asking the right questions. And it's like a lot like as we speak, right? So the better we get, the better questions we get, and that gets us farther along. But if we are constantly talking, we're not learning, right? So for us, if we're asking good questions in multifamily, then we're getting more familiar with the process.
Gotcha.
Like riding a bike. If I read a book on riding a bike and I kept reading this book, it still wouldn't apply for me jumping on the bike. So sometimes at points, you got to get on the bike and start going. So I'm more open to move forward and learn as I go, knowing that there's going to be steps I don't know. And that's just, no matter how much I learn, like things are going to come up. And Pili is my grounding force, right? She'll ask the questions and some of those questions, and we'll talk it through. And usually for that point, she knows that if I'm this strong on it, we're going to go forward on it, but she's given me the thought track of some of the points to think of. So we're built on, building community, understanding other people have been doing it successfully, because when you look at real estate, there's going to be some new things that come into it, but generally the process has been there for generations, right? People are buying apartment buildings. So, okay, let's look at this to the core basic of it. Like, what do we need to do to accomplish these tasks? And now start putting the tasks in place and doing them in a progression that is actually a logical progression, instead of going out there, finding a building and making an offer and then saying, okay, well, I'm going to do syndication. So how do I raise money? Because I've got an offer accepted, and now I need to, find a property manager, and now I need to, get a loan, and now you're chasing, right? And you need, instead of understanding how you can be a valuable resource for these other people and these other partners, now you have all this placed out and you have prepared. You understand how you could help your investors. You understand your loan options could be beneficial to it. You speak to yourself, understand the cost segregation process, understand how this could be a beneficial part to the process. Then when you find an apartment building and you start making offers, now you can feel comfortable, because now you have a way to help other people, instead of saying, hey, I have this deal, now I need help from everyone, and you've provided no value.
So it's putting those systems in place, understanding what the processes are even before you get started, but really just jumping in once you have that set up so that you can continue that value. I'm curious how you guys have had one of the longest running podcasts in the real estate, not the longest, but it's definitely, and it's changed forms over time, but I'm curious to understand how that has helped you in, building the multifamily business.
Sure. I mean,
is it just like those questions? I mean, my assumption is, and I will hear from you, but I want to speak to the experts and I want to ask my questions directly to them. And that's a great resource.
Well, it's magic about podcasting, and you're right. I mean, so we focus a lot of mental fortitude to talk to this podcast, and we found that when we started out with the Real Estate Foundation podcast into the Multifamily Foundation podcast, we were still focusing so much on small business and really mental fortitude and health, because that's what we did. So it was like we were fighting a narrative that was so big in our life, and that's when we transitioned to the overall encompassing Jason and Pili Project that has real estate and multifamily underneath it, has the layer for mothers of multifamily and entrepreneurship, and really just living a fit rich life. And so we wanted to have that all underneath. So now we have an open format to really talk to what we do, and we weren't really cutting off our legs, right? We were going in there. And where that goes to podcasting is anybody out there should be some medium as you move forward, no matter what you are, that you're connecting on and providing value, because we're constantly sourced on how we bring value. And that value could be in any way. If you're writing on LinkedIn, or you're, providing content, or doing anything in between, right? We're going to look back and people are going to remember for our content, because now it's trackable. I mean, when I was a kid, right, there's no digital format that I can look back at, but now my kids are going to have a digital format, right? So they're going to have the Facebook or the other points that it's almost like creating a yearbook year on year. And Facebook does a good part of this, where you can look back, and just to see the family grow and look back to that. So getting back to your question, what happens here with podcasting is you're able to speak to people and make connections, and it gets you to now be a thought leader in a way, even if you're not the one who has all the knowledge yet or has grown your knowledge. But it also continues to allow you to understand how other people work, understand what they see, and help others by asking questions where maybe someone who's listening, we'll have listeners all over the world, and so maybe people are listening in Germany and like, man, I wish I could ask this question. They hear the question come out, and they can hear that person's thought process where they've never had the direct connection with that person. So I have, we have the Iron Cowboy coming on the podcast. He ran, it was 50 Ironmen in 50 days in 50 states, in every 50 states. And so talking that journey, right, it's magical. Or we had, David Meltzer. He was a huge sports agent. Just talking to these people and their evolution, and just understanding how they went. And what you find is the common through line is everybody has a goal, and then has the path, and the path is rocky and it never works, but they know forward that if they just get up one more time and keep pushing along no matter where it is, and set up a logical process and really set up accountability, they're going to continue to get there. And each time they may fall farther than they did before, but if they get back up, they're going to go farther. They're going to go higher than they did before. And then ultimately, when you look back, you're going to see that you're a lot higher than where you started.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, for anyone who is listening to this and considering starting a podcast, or you have a podcast, I think this is incredible advice. This is incredible insight into that journey, finding your voice, finding, who you are, and not just to kind of be subject to what everyone else is doing, but how you can add value that's unique to you and your platform. And through that, you'll grow and you'll learn. You'll become a thought leader just by asking those questions and just by having the right people you're associating yourself with. So I think it's really valuable advice right there.
It's amazing advice. And it opens you up to a point where Pili, she's very outgoing. That's how she is. Like the Hawaiian family, they hug everybody. I go from a family, Italian family, we're closed in. So it opens me to be more outgoing in a way, and but also find what I need to help with by continuing to talk it out, because we're only good when we can have a clear conversation. And I may agree or I may not agree with everyone I interview, but I have to see it from both ways so I can have the best, clear, conscious approach to how I want to talk to the subject.
100%. So, Jason, I think now's the time. We're going to jump into the final 4. These are 4 questions I ask all of my guests. I usually prepare everyone before we hit the record button, and I forgot to do so. So this is just going to be totally blind right now. I'm going to ask you anything, like what's your favorite? No, just kidding. I don't know what I'll just make it up as we go, because now I can ask you anything. The first question we always ask our guests is, what was the worst job that you ever had?
Oh man, I'm probably I have done them all. And so like to say that, Pili and I we've gone courses that most people want. I mean, that's why getting up early, and if people think I've always been an early person, I'm not. We used to work till 6 a.m. Right. Really? So I've done a lot of other businesses that require nightlife instead of day life. So we've had both sides of it. There's a lot. I'll say I Harrisburg, PA. Through college, I loaded trucks overnight on a open shipping dock. And that open shipping dock, so you would have basically a forklift, and you would have to load all the trucks up that were going for delivery. And I would do it overnight, 3 days a week through college. So I think Friday, Sunday, I think it was Tuesday night. Going to work basically 7 p.m., get off at like 5 a.m. kind of thing. And you were on a elevated concrete slab, which was the loading dock, of course. And for that, I'd have 3 snow hats on. You'd still be frigid to that point. And I can still remember, because they would have coffee, but they'd have the powdered milk. And still to this day, I see that it conjures that memory of powdered milk. And maybe that's one thing. I don't drink dairy much anymore, but I don't know if there was the through line through there, but that was one of them. I've done a couple in the range, but that's the first one that comes up.
Oh yeah, I can imagine that sounds pretty difficult. So second question we ask all our guests is, what is a book that has given you a paradigm shift? Something that's made you think totally different? And I'm sure there's many, because
there is.
We all have.
It's constantly changing. The first one that comes to mind, because I was actually watching a small documentary on him, was David Goggins' You Can't Hurt Me. So incredible book. And you listen to that, I mean, you'll run through a wall, and it's just another point of a person who has had a very, there was no way I could come back 10 times at a bad life and had such a bad life as he has had. But he's found a way to mentally prepare himself to say that, okay, this has happened, but I'm going to go forward. I'm going to use this to my advantage to help others see that there is good out there, and there's good ways to put your energy to use in the best way to overcome obstacles when things aren't great.
Very powerful indeed. Yeah. No, excellent choice of book. And like you said, we are constantly changing and constantly coming across things that give us paradigm shifts, allow us to think totally differently than we ever saw before. And I think that's the value of continually learning, continually reading, because just like that, you'll come across something that will totally change your worldview, and hopefully for the better.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the third question we ask is, what skill or talent would you like to learn?
So skill or talent would be an instrument. I'd love to play an instrument. I think it would be endearing if I could learn to play the ukulele, being that my wife's family, they all play it. And I have another one is I've broken pretty much every finger I have. So this one's crushed. So for that point, maybe I don't think I've broken this one, but 9 out of 10 is not bad. So I don't know if the dexterity remains, but it's to be seen. And my little 5-year-old, my oldest, has picked one up and he's finding the narrative. And that's so great. That would be one. Languages would be 2, because I'm also now coming that my kids I can get by in Italian, but they are pretty good in Italian and they're speaking Hawaiian, and they want me to read Hawaiian books, and they're every other word they're correcting me. So I can't, between a 5 and a 3-year-old and probably the 1-year-old soon, I can't even get through a book because every second word they're correcting me on the Hawaiian. I'm like, just let me get through this. We're trying to read a book here, which I can't understand. So yeah.
That's great. Well, that's great. No, it's an amazing skill. And I speak and understand 3 languages fluently. Wow. And so, yeah, it is quite remarkable when you can do that. So that's definitely a good one. And a common theme that a lot of our guests, between language and instruments. So I find that very, very interesting, because both of those things really open your mind up to thinking on different planes and different levels. Mm-hmm. And it really translates. And I see this with my own kids, that they also speak 3 languages, that they really have an ability to, explore things and think about things in different ways, because with each language comes a culture. It's not just you're learning a language and you have, out of a textbook, each language comes with its own nuances and its own cultural things to it. So that kind of opens you up to many different aspects.
I remember because I was able to get by in Italian. I lived in Italy for 2 years. And one of my first experiences there, when I was first there, I was trying to go in and order a brioche, right? And the lady would not give it to me. And I couldn't understand, because I literally was like, just there, right? And we're back, there's no internet. I'm like this, 1998 or something. Was it not? No, it was probably maybe 2000, right? 2000. And the ultimate point is she was trying to relay that she was bringing up a fresh batch. She'll just give me a minute, I'm bringing up a fresh batch. So she gave me a fresh one. She wouldn't let me have the last one, which she thought maybe was old. So it was one of these magical moments, because you're not understanding, and on that point they're bringing value to you, but you just had to wait for the reaction to understand the process. And so you go back, and now the conversation got easier, but as after 2 years you leave, and now the wording's real good, but the conversational nature has gone.
Absolutely. So last and final question, Jason, is what does success mean to you?
So that can go on so much, right? So the mile marker is that I am creating value that really can identify a future for my family, where the kids can understand how to bring good and bring value to the future, right? So when I leave, have an effect that's gonna look back and say that I've had my time has been well spent to help everyone around me and the others behind me to lead better paths in their life.
Beautiful. And that speaks a lot to, what, beginning with the end in mind, thinking and making those goals ahead of time and understanding that. So Jason, I appreciate you being on here with us today. Where can our listeners find you or get in touch with you?
Sure. So you, of course, mentioned the Jason and Pili Project. I super appreciate you. You've been a great guest on the show. Go find us, Jason and Pili Project, in your podcast players or YouTube, or Yarusi Holdings, YARUSI Holdings.com. I'm Jason at Yarusi Holdings.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jason. Again, I appreciate you taking the time with us today, and especially the time is so valuable, and using the time for those more valuable projects and endeavors. So it really means a lot that you took that time today. And regards to Pili, obviously, she'll get this when it airs. And to all of our listeners, I appreciate you. And remember, the best advice comes only when you ask. Real quick, I have one question for you. Did you like this episode? If you did, I want to ask you a huge favor. See, the biggest thing that helps this podcast grow and that will spread this message to the whole world is that if you leave a review, a rating, and subscribe to the podcast. What that does is it basically tells the platforms that this podcast is out on is that you like my stuff and I'm doing something right. So take a few seconds out of your day, hit that subscribe button, leave a rating or review. I would be extremely grateful. Also, I want to hear from you guys. So I want to hear some feedback. If you have any questions for future episodes, please find me on LinkedIn. Send me a DM, a connection request, Yona Weiss, and I'd love to hear from you.